So, as much as I hate to cover the same person 2 days in a row, and I've been having to do that more lately because it feels like all of these conservative content creators right now are just like machine gunning bullshit into the internet space. But hey, more content for me means more stuff to cover, means more for you guys to watch, means entertainment for you. And who am I to complain about that? So, Ben Shapiro, who I did cover just yesterday, getting really mad about the new Disney Lightyear movie featuring a scene where a lesbian couple holds their young son and smiles at each other. And he talks about how this is representative of the moral degradation of Western society and all that. You know how Ben Shapiro is. And of course, just today, or yesterday actually, it was a little later in the day, he ended up uploading a full video talking about this. And I figured I could redo that whole segment from yesterday, or we could just make it a whole other segment, so why not? Let's just do that. We're covering Ben Shapiro's separate video on it as well, and the tweet coverage can be its own thing. Now, Ben, of course, talks very quickly, which is why I'm only turning his video up to 1.5 speed. We don't want to be here all day, of course. I don't, need to be keeping my editor up all night editing up these videos. You know how it is. They've got things to do with their life as well. With that said, Ben Shapiro hit me up. Disney's Not So Gay secret agenda gets Lightyear banned in Saudi Arabia. How much do you want to bet that Ben Shapiro is going to praise Saudi Arabian censorship here? Chat, any takers? Who thinks Ben's going to defend Saudi Arabian censorship here? Anyone here? Hypers if you think he will. You think so? Wouldn't be surprised? No. Some people think no. I bet 4 gifted subs he does it. All right, Pufflecakes, let's go.
To censor your opponents. This is basically the viewpoint of the left. And the idea is you have to agree with them on every score, or you yourself are some sort of deep-seated, deep-rooted fascist. This is apparently what I'm learning now.
Good lord, he's very good at shotgunning bullshit. No, you do not need to be morally pure through and through in order to be considered a lefty. There are always going to be assholes on any side politically that'll act like assholes because you don't agree on 100% of things. That's what Twitter is all about. Trust me, it happens on the right too. You don't get to single-handedly just place that on the left exclusively.
Because yesterday, I tweeted that Disney is putting a same-sex kiss in the brand new movie Lightyear. And this is the new Buzz Lightyear film. It is directed at small children who like the Toy Story series. And they've made a very big deal out of this. I mean, it's not like Disney is not treating this as historic.
Well, to be clear, it's also pretty well aimed at adults who grew up with Toy Story, obviously. There are a lot of adults who watch Disney.
They are treating this as historic. And this is just another great example of the left doing something that is deliberately provocative. And then when you notice them saying, well, it's not happening.
The left does something deliberately provocative, includes a gay kiss in a movie. You're the ones freaking out over it. I'm sorry. They just did the thing and now you're freaking out.
And they say, well, it is because you just said it is. And they say, well, it is happening and it's good. And if you notice, you're a bigot. And that is the idea here.
Dude, I love how dishonest these people are. They'll be like, if you notice, you're a bigot. That's what Nazis do, by the way. They'll say, if you notice, or if you question, or if you talk about crime statistics or IQ or racial data, then all of a sudden you're a racist. And it's like, you look at what they're actually talking about, and it's like, well, if you look at the skull shapes, you can see that the skull shape of the African man is different from the European white. Like, what the fuck do you want? It's the same kind of shit. When you don't have any leg to stand on, and you know that your ideas are morally reprehensible, and that society has for a very long time become conditioned to recognize that your ideas are awful, you start to have to adjust your rhetoric. You have to adjust your messaging and change the way that you go about pushing your ideas. You can't say things like, oh, we want to kill all the gay people and take their rights away. You have to say, we're concerned that there are groomers among the LGBT community that are pushing an agenda on our children without the permission of their parents. When you frame it like that, now you can basically concern troll and, actually garner enough support to potentially roll back decades of civil rights progress.
I noticed, which according to the left means that I'm a bigot, and I said, maybe you should take it under advisement that the sexual values that the left teaches are not the ones you want your kids to learn from Lightyear the movie. Which doesn't seem all that controversial to me, frankly. It seems like, the sort of traditional norm, male-female couple producing children.
Okay. there's nothing about couples in movies that is meant to teach kids about like reproduction or like models of relationships necessarily. Usually what I find relationships in like especially kids movies to be tend to be two things. They just exist for like the story, right? Like the story's about a kid, so necessarily the kid has parents, right? And so there's a relationship, right? And then when the relationship or the desire for one is part of the story, like, I don't know, a kid or a character or whatever in a kid's movie has a crush or whatever, right? That's usually the way that it's gone about. It's not usually like, here's a kid's movie that's supposed to teach you how to be in a good relationship. I've never seen any, like, at least when I was a kid, I never saw anything like that. I don't know. Maybe some more modern like kids animated programming. Like if you look at like Steven Universe, it gets a little bit deep into shit like that. Adventure Time definitely did too. If you look at some of the arcs Finn went through, but like if we're talking about real like kids programming, you don't really see that kind of stuff. Clearly, the relationship that's being talked about, we haven't even really seen the scene yet. The scene that's being talked about right now by all of the media, and especially the conservative media, is no doubt going to be a flash in the pan moment that nobody is really going to think about all that much. What it will do, however, is normalize the existence of gay people to many, many small children. And that is what Ben Shapiro and his ilk are against, because they know exposure to people that aren't like you makes you much less likely to be averse to people that aren't exactly like you.
Being what is in children's movies. I'm not sure why that is supposed to change, or why it must change, or why it's necessary to teach small children the prevailing sexual values of the left. Why is that? Why is that a thing that is necessary? I mean, there will be plenty.
So I also think it's important to point out, by the way, that sexual values of the left is a dog whistle. And it's one that the left needs to start calling out and making a much bigger deal about, because it's a very clear one. When conservatives say that, they mean the existence of gay people, the existence of queer people, period. Very funny pause frame. Yeah, that's very. He does look like he's like, who's getting the best dick? Who's getting the best dick? Clearly Ben. No, in all seriousness, he's about to go Joker mode. No, but in all seriousness, what they're doing here is they're trying to. Okay, our society has basically reached the point where 90% of people, I would ballpark, if they notice that a group of people is actively vying to take away rights from another group of people simply because they exist, that typically in and of itself is a red flag to most people. Do you all agree? Like, I know that like society has a lot of problems and there's a lot of bigots in our society, but I think generally, like especially here in America, most people are averse to things that are obviously bigoted. It's why dog whistles exist in the first place. If that wasn't the case, dog whistles wouldn't exist in the first place, obviously. Which is why Ben Shapiro has to change the entire parameters of the discussion. Now it's not about trans people and gay people and queer people of all kinds trying to just live their lives and do what they want to do and be happy and not be fucked with by anyone. Now it's about a agenda, a philosophy, a sexual framework, or a sexual philosophy from the left that is being pushed onto the world every single time gay people try to vie for any level of societal parity with everyone else. And they can completely flip the script there. Now it's not they're the oppressors and they're the ones who are desperately trying to keep the oppressed from being able to get their word out, which is what they're doing because they have tons of money and they have the money to fund, people to claim that they're comedians and just like put out content that's meant to like convince entire like demographics of people that trans people are degenerate, delusional, haha, make fun of them, attack helicopter, whatever. You start with the humor, then you move on to Ben Shapiro, like, your Stephen Crowders and whatnot. Then you move on to your Ben Shapiro's, where it's the more dry, like, arguments being made about the left sexual agenda. And, next thing you know, you're watching someone like John Doyle or Nick Fuentes. It happens all the fucking time. It's the modern day alt-right rabbit hole. It's always been there. It's just changed. Xander Hall, that is true. I think conservatives are accelerating their hate movements too fast, and the propagandists can't control their audience anymore. So now they have to go further. Imagine a car that lost control of its brakes, and now conservatives are going to crash the car because they don't know how to actually stop a malfunctioning car. This is what happened back in the day. The right online got a very big boost during the Gamergate era and around Trump's presidency, as his policies started to be enacted and he actually started to have his way, and people started to realize, wait, Trump's not like a memer who's not going to do anything bad. He's actually taking rights away from people and doing bad shit and fucking us over. And then on top of that, some of the popular right-wing figures just lost control of their audiences. Some of them went full mask off, and it just all fell apart. And well, I do think we're still in the rising roller coaster, the rising side of the roller coaster, on the sort of rise of 2016 2 or Gamergate 2, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I do think that the next big fall is imminent, and that's going to lead to a whole new uprising of lefty content creators, and that's what you want to get excited for.
Plenty of time for that later on in life when kids are fully capable of understanding the moral values and judgments that are implied by sexual
You could be one of them.
behavior, for example, or by the choices that you choose to make in your relationships. But doing that with small kids and then pretending that, for example, same-sex marriage and heterosexual marriage are completely equivalent in every way.
I really enjoy the fact that he's arguing against a point that doesn't exist. Who is saying that a gay couple is the same as a straight couple in every single way? Obviously, it's not. All the left is arguing is that gay couples, if they are capable of raising a child, just as any straight couple is, should be able to adopt a child and raise one. And it's okay if that's depicted in media sometimes.
Under natural law, morally, evolutionarily. You're opening a can of worms, in other words, that doesn't need to be opened in children's film. And Disney knows this, which is why they are doing
opening a can of worms that doesn't need to be opened in a children's film. I'm sorry, you're opening a ton of cans of worms anytime you depict two characters kissing in anything. Not to mention, you're gonna get the where do babies come from question. Come on. These pause frames. Yeah, I like how I got a blur between a frame where his eyes are shut and his eyes are open. So it looks like he's being possessed by I don't know, the Balrog of the deeps, some demon of the ancient world.
doing this. If you notice this, however, the left now suggests that this is a violation of freedom of speech. Because apparently what they mean by freedom of speech is you must approve everything that we do. If I say, listen,
Really?
you're a parent, you want to take your kids to see Lightyear? Your prerogative. You're a parent, you can do what you want. I'm not taking my kids to see Lightyear. If I say that, apparently this now makes me a cancel culture specialist, or this turns me...
Okay. Ben Shapiro, when you go on your show and you rally all your fans together against a movie, a children's movie, because it has a gay kiss in it, yes, that is cancel culture. You are engaging in canceling. That is what that is. You are doing cancel culture. Everybody does cancel culture. All it is when a group of people who are mad about a thing get together and publicly voice their anger about that thing. The extent to what effect that has is irrelevant to whether or not it's cancel culture. That just is what it is. That is colloquially what we've decided it is. That is what we've tended to do online and on social media. That is the definition we basically landed on. If you're mad, then you can gargle very, very firmly on my balls.
Into a violator of the First Amendment, or that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I'm not calling for Lightyear to be banned. This isn't Saudi Arabia. It's in China. I'm not saying that it should be banned or that you can't, it should never be played in theaters or anything like that. I'm saying that you, as a parent, get to decide what sort of values you wish to teach your kids, rather than the executives at Disney who have suggested that they wish to deliberately indoctrinate your kids with LGBT values.
I want you to notice here that he's making a contradictory argument. He's saying, see, I'm not advocating for censorship. I'm not in favor of, I'm not in favor of it being banned from theaters or anything like that. All I'm saying is Disney executives shouldn't get to decide what your kids learn. So, well, what he's directly saying is that you, the parents, are the ones who get to decide whether or not to take your kids to this movie. That goes without saying. That's obviously it goes without saying. You don't need to upload dozens of videos talking about this movie to get that point across. What he's heavily implying here, what the subtext of this video is that there is a moral wrong in these Disney executives greenlighting any level of gay or queer characters existing in any media they have a say in existing.
They say this openly. LaToya Ravenew, who's an executive producer there, she said they have the direct quote, not at all secret gay agenda that they wish to insert in their children's programming. You have the head of Disney literally saying that she has
you have to tell me, like, why is it bad to have gay people existing? And he looks so mad. He's so angry. Why is it bad for gay people to exist in media? Please tell me where the moral wrong is there. I need to know. No one will tell me.
A non-binary kid and a transgender child, and she wishes to expand the roster of such characters.
Listen, guys, I'm in favor of the Stop Puppies from Starving to Death agenda. I am going to push the Keep Puppies from Starving to Death agenda in every one of my videos. You see, saying something is an agenda on its own isn't really an argument, is it? The word agenda just kind of sounds scary to stupid people. So if you put the word gay, which is scary to bigots, in front of agenda, which is scary to stupid people, which bigots are, you're going to get a word that just, a magic word, a word that doesn't really mean anything, that you can't really quantify or actually appoint any level of meaning to or any like actual real life like significance to, but you can say it and it will make your audience nod along like, oh yeah, the gay agenda totally exists. Yeah, very harmful to our children and our youth. Yeah, really contributing to the moral degradation of our society. And that's what they'll do. It's their little magic word they've developed, these conservative commentators.
Characters in children's programming until it encompasses something like 50% of all of the characters. So if you notice that, apparently you're bad. And
Ben thinks that 50% of characters in children's media are going to be gay. Even if that, for one, that wouldn't even be harmful if that was the case. And two, that's never going to be the case. Never going to be. Not unless we reach a level in which we actually figure out that actually like 50% of people in society really are queer or gay or whatever. And that it turns out, and like society's gotten to the point where it's going to be like, oh yeah, it turns out straight and gay people, roughly 50-50. Yeah, roughly 50-50, you know, in our society. If that, or like, and like by gay, I mean like any type of fluid sexuality that isn't just hardline straight. That wouldn't necessarily surprise me. It could even be a higher percentage. If that ended up being the case and we've reached a level in our society where that was broadly known and fully accepted and just part of what we understand and know as modern, just everyday fact of life, then maybe that will be the case in future children's programming, just because it'll reflect the real world a little bit more accurately. And, you know, all art that we create is reflective of the real world. Art imitates life. It really does. So I think that's what's going to happen here. Where are you? Your background is different. Blink twice if you need help. I do not need help. I'm on vacation.
Also violative of free speech. But if people shout you down and say that you're not allowed to have any opinion on this sort of stuff, that is not violent. I'm not saying you can't have an opinion. You can have an opinion. I'm saying your opinion is wrong. You are saying that if we express our opinion, then we should be silenced. And this, unfortunately, is the way that our culture is currently.
This is where things get a little bit murky. What Ben Shapiro is saying here is on surface level kind of true. You should never know, but everyone's allowed to have their opinion, right? Everyone's allowed to have their opinion that this movie sucks or they don't like the gay agenda or whatever. Sure, everyone's allowed to have their opinion. I can't control Ben Shapiro's opinion or whatever. However, the people want you to be silenced for having your opinion thing, that's not quite the case. Nobody's getting banned or telling people that they need to be banned because they don't like the movie or they just don't want to see the movie. Generally, those that are being like, those that are having people say they need to be banned are those that are large conservative commentators like Ben Shapiro, who not only do that, but also use the topic as a way to spread further hate and possible danger towards LGBT people in the world. It's quite worrying, and it's one of those things where like you want to be able to have a platform that's completely open and free speech. There's no restrictions, no censorship whatsoever, so on and so on. And it's like, yeah, but right now everybody on YouTube is begging for Quantum TV to get banned or punished in any way. Like, I'll talk to people in the drama community or in the commentary community or just YouTubers in general that don't like TOS existing, and they'll be super against TOS, but then all of them right now are like screaming at YouTube to ban Quantum TV, which I agree with, by the way. They should ban Quantum TV, but where was that with, like, I don't know, Alex Jones? It wasn't there with Alex Jones because in some cases they agree with him, or in other cases they just don't fucking care. They don't give a shit about the marginalized groups that they spread misinformation about and garner hatred towards with lies. Like, I'm honestly pretty convinced there are fascists in YouTube management. That would surprise me. I don't think fascists. I think they're just some chuds, maybe. Science is leaning towards people being more bisexual than they want to admit most of the time. Straight isn't the default. It's the socially imposed norm. I'm behind a bit. Yeah, I do think we have to consider the fact that it's really, really hard to, like, here's how you would have to measure this, okay? You would have to get, say, I'd say a good group, like a good sample group for all of these experiments would be like 5,000. And you would want to get all 1,000, like you would want to get 250 from New York, 250 from LA, 250 from, like, I don't know, like, actually no, state-based, okay? Like 250 from New York, 250 from Florida, 250 from Texas, 250 from California. And that'll be the 1,000 from America. And do that from like a few big major countries all around the world, but like 200, like quarter it up. So it's 250 from different areas. And then you would, like, that would be your control group. You would simply like measure the level of arousal they experience upon seeing naked images or pornographic images of men, women, and you could even really like go even further into the experimentation with trans women, trans men, like more androgynous presenting non-binary people. You could really get interesting with human sexuality if we wanted to go through it. But here's where the really fucked up part happens. This is how you would have to actually experiment on whether or not straightness and heteronormativity are completely, and like their generality and like how common they are completely just an aspect of socialization. You would have to take newborn babies whose entire gestational period was spent with their mother in basically inside of one of those sensory deprivation tanks, because there is research to show that outside stimuli during development can affect growing fetuses. So you have to completely remove all of that. So get rid of that. Baby is born. Baby immediately is just put into a white room that has a light that turns on and off, and a robot, a completely agender robot, takes care of it. You would have to do this with literally 10,000 babies or 5,000 babies, however big our sample group is. Raise those babies all the way to adulthood. Now, I guarantee every single one of these babies is going to have a robot fetish. And then once they grow up to adulthood and sexual maturity, that is when you do the same study on them. And, they've never really like had contact with humans before or had the effect of society on them. So they're just exposed to men, women, so on. And you see what completely blank slate humans with no societal implications, because you can't just raise a bunch of babies together and raise them to adults together, because then they're going to form a society and impose their own will on each other. You have to raise them separately and then test them separately so their sexualities completely develop entirely in a vacuum. That is the only way that you could possibly measure this. And I'm sorry, but I don't think that's ever going to pass any level of ethics committee. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. So yeah, we're probably never really going to find out what percentage of society really is some level of queer or sexually non-normative.
Constructed. It's an uneven construction. People on the right very rarely try to actually silence people on the left. People on the left routinely try to do it with people who are on the right by suggesting they're fascists and they must be stopped. That is the goal here. And so this holds true on virtually every front. This is particularly true with regard to climate change, where it has been decided that if you violate the precepts that the left has been promulgating, then this means that you have to shut up. Now, here's the thing. The rubric of climate change.
I want to say, by the way, people like Ben Shapiro have been complaining about any level of correction on climate change for a very long time. Back in the day, what YouTube originally did was they simply made it so if you talk about climate change in a video or you have climate change in your title or your tags, they add a little link to the official Wikipedia page on climate change. They did the same with the Holocaust, COVID, just any controversial topic that tends to have a lot of misinformation spread about it. And that set the conservatives off like crazy. They were so fucking mad that they can't spread their propaganda anymore without any pushback whatsoever. They were so mad that Google was forcing the reality down the throats of their brainwashed viewer base. So to be clear here, he's not mad about any censorship or anything like that. The people who get banned for stuff like this are the most egregious of the most egregious. Those that typically engage in violent threats and overt racism and transphobia and homophobia. I'm talking like going out on street corners and screaming slurs at people and assaulting people. Those are the types that typically get banned. Usually people like Ben Shapiro are very safe. He's not mad about the censorship. He's mad that YouTube is taking any efforts whatsoever to raise awareness about the fact that Ben Shapiro and his ilk are a bunch of grifting, bigoted fools.
Change denialism that they like to push all the time is that you are a climate change denier if you say that climate change is happening and also that human beings are very good at adaptation, we'll figure it out. Apparently this amounts to climate change denialism.
It does because it falls under the same umbrella. The goalpost has been being pushed by conservatives for a really, really long time. So first it was, there is no such thing as climate change. Humans couldn't possibly affect the environment. Only God can do that. How could you possibly say that? And then when the evidence came out and it was incontrovertible, they were like, okay, well, actually there are still scientists out there who disagree. The evidence is up in the air. It's not really that settled. Maybe a lot of scientists are saying, but it's not that settled. And then they said, okay, maybe it is settled. Maybe the data is settled. 98, 99% of scientists agree on it. But it's because we're coming out of an ice age, a small ice age. It's all natural causes. Humans can't affect the environment. It is getting warmer not because of that. Well, okay, here's all the data that proves that is the case, and here's how it happens. Well, okay, that is the case, but now humans will adapt. Humans will adapt. And that is the case. Humans will no doubt adapt. Humans are not going to go extinct due to climate change. It's just not the case. It's not going to be a raining hellfire end of the world scenario. What is going to happen is that tens, if not hundreds of millions will die, be displaced, lose their homes. There will be massive refugee crises. There will be famines and food shortages. There will be supply shortages of everything. Infrastructure will be destroyed. Land area will be consumed by the sea. Access to fresh drinking water will go away because once clean, fresh reservoirs of water will be flooded with seawater that is salty. So we'll have even less fresh water, which is already becoming a commodity in and of itself. Coastal areas and coastal environments, which we do rely on for a surprising amount of food. Like we eat a lot of food that we just get from coastal environments, and that's just gonna not be a thing you can eat anymore. And a lot of animals are gonna get mass extinct due to the coastlines getting destroyed. Trust me, not enough of them are going to be able to adapt. I do think that life will find a way and ecosystems will adapt, but a lot of it isn't. And we should make an effort to protect these ecosystems and these environments. I'd like there to still be coral reefs when I'm 30. Wouldn't that be cool? If by the time I'm 30 and I'm old enough to afford a trip to somewhere where there is coral reefs, they still exist. Wouldn't that be dope? I think it'd be pretty dope.
Even though, by the way, that's what pretty much everyone who knows the science agrees is what's going to happen, is that there will be problems associated with climate change, that economic growth created by free markets and free trade and economic laissez-faire liberalism is going to wildly outpace the amount of damage done by climate change over the course of the next century, and that we'll then have money in areas of the world.
Sorry, Ben, but China's outpacing us in that department. And that's good old state capitalism, I guess. They're making artificial ones. Artificial, what do you mean? Like reefs? No. There's a difference between an artificial reef and the ability for the world's oceans to support coral anymore. You can fill a big sandy patch of shallow water with cinder blocks and whatnot and hope coral will grow on it and pollinate it with coral. But if the oceans are no longer capable of having coral inhabiting them, then it's just a bunch of cinder blocks in the water, not a coral reef.
that currently don't have money to spend in helping to solve some of the more brutal side effects of climate change. If you mention this sort of stuff.
Ben Shapiro just said liberalism is capitalism. Did he even know he admitted that? He knows that not every conservative knows that. Ben Shapiro knows that. He's a Harvard graduate. He's smart enough to know that. He is a liar and a grifter, though. He peddles lies to his audience, and he makes a lot of money doing it. He can say one thing in this video and then say that the left and liberals are socialist the next.
According to the left, this means you ought to be censored.
Conservatism, much like fascism, because it's sort of like an arm of it, are inherently contradictory. But no, I mean, you can't just like leave a bunch of cinder blocks in the ocean and say it's a reef, okay? I would like for by the time I'm 30 years old and I can afford to go on a flight out to like Queensland, Australia, and go swimming out on the coral reefs out there. I would hope that coral can still be supported and exist in the world's oceans by then. And that is like one of the things that's a big worry. You have to consider the fact that it's not just ocean acidification that's a big worry there. It's also temperature. Coral are like pretty damn temperature dependent, and they don't like their ideal temperature to fluctuate too much. And oxygen content in the water. There's just a lot of things about the water's like the state of the water that needs to be perfect for coral to grow, and we're destroying the ability for the ocean to exist in that state. They're very fragile. Yeah, coral are little fragile liberal snowflakes, as Ben Shapiro here would say.
So now you have the Wall Street Journal editorial board today on climate change censorship. Here's what they write. Progressives first demanded the social media platform silence critics of climate alarmism. Now, White House National Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy wants them to censor content on the cost of a force-fed green energy transition. A few years ago, Facebook enlisted third-party fact-checkers to review news stories about climate. That didn't satisfy Democratic senators who held about a loophole for opinion pieces. Facebook then began appending fact checks to op-eds, including by our contributors Bjorn Lomborg and Stephen Koonin, that criticized apocalyptic climate models and studies. The goal was to restrict readership. Now, what's amazing is that even the left is starting to come around on this. There's an entire article at Vox.com recently talking about how the world is not going to end because of climate change. Ezra Klein had an entire article over at the New York Times talking about how the alarmism that causes environmentalists not to want to have kids is overstated. So it only took
Okay. There's a very big difference. So, for one, Ben Shapiro is paid by oil billionaires, okay? No doubt, tons of Ben Shapiro's money comes from the oil industry. We know at least some of it does because of his association with PragerU. He's gone on he's very much closely associated with PragerU, and we know what they get funded by. So, Ben Shapiro, who has the money and the power to not only essentially astroturf his own career onto the internet, but to then astroturf his own sister's career onto the internet. I don't know if you guys remember, but this guy paid for his sister to have ads all over YouTube for like a year. And those videos that the ads led to were all massively dislike ratioed. Everyone hated them. Everyone who clicked on them went there to hate, comment, and dislike. And yet, she ended up gaining enough subscribers to now just organically grow as a conservative content creator. Her entire YouTube channel was astroturfed into existence. She did not organically grow from anything. She just had her brother, or whoever pays her brother, pay for a bunch of non-targeted ads, so everyone sees them, so that they can just throw the widest net and bring a ton of people into her channel. And of course, you can't escape the Daily Wire Ben Shapiro ads on YouTube.
Them a few years of propagandizing on behalf of the world is about to end and the earth is about to boil to back off that position. And if you didn't take that position, they tried to censor you at the time. But, says the Wall Street Journal, progressives are moving on to censorship phase 2, which is shutting down debate over climate solutions. Now it's not so much denying the problem, McCarthy said in an Axios interview last Thursday. What the industry is now doing is seeding doubt about the costs associated with green energy and whether they work or not. Ms. McCarthy cited the week-long power outage in Texas in February 2021. The first thing we read in the paper was that the blackouts occurred because of those wind turbines, she said. That became the mantra. Well, actually, most of the media blamed climate change and fossil fuels. But, as it turns out, the flex capacity, the flex power produced by windmills is not nearly enough to supply...
Wait, hold on. Ben Shapiro, you understand that colder, more miserable, and unprecedented winters in an area where that's not really supposed to happen are an agreed upon by the scientific community symptom of climate change, man-made climate change, by the way, and that's also related to the Texas power infrastructure issues that caused the blackout. Is it possible both of those things could be true at once, Ben? Maybe.
Energy costs, you can't cover the energy gap when the pipes freeze up. The Wall Street Journal pointed out that gas-fired plants couldn't make up for the wind shortfall despite running all out, And then some of those went down too. McCarthy doesn't want to admit the inconvenient truth that renewable energy sources are making the grid increasingly unreliable. Comparing fossil fuel companies to big tobacco, she then complained that dark money is being used to fool the public about the benefits of clean energy.
Ben Shapiro, you and your friends at the Daily Wire wouldn't know anything about dark money funding. Now, would you?
We need the tech companies to really jump in, she said, because highlighting the cost of green energy is equally dangerous to denial because we have to move fast. So if you assess their policy and you say these policies are not likely to work and they're going to be very expensive, she's now saying that's climate change denial. This is what the left does. They take a core and then they expand it outward to encompass everything we don't like. They do this on nearly every topic.
So what Ben Shapiro is actually describing here is the tendency for people to sometimes change their mind when new evidence comes along that makes them realize, oh shit, we got to do a thing differently. Conservatives are very much set in their way. I mean, that's essentially a large aspect of their entire ideology, is that nothing should ever change, right? We should keep society exactly the same in a certain way, right? What they're angry about is the fact that we are trying to inherently, our political ideology inherently makes us want to push society ahead. Theirs inherently makes them want society to stay where it is. They're just trying to regress. And I love when people get mad about, like, oh my God, I heard somebody recently say progressive, calling yourself progressive is really, as like a lefty, is really stupid because it makes it, you sound like an asshole because it makes it sound like conservatives are not progressing society. It makes you sound like we're the ones progressing society. And I was like, but we are. The right are the ones regressing it. It was really weird. It was a weird convo I had, but regardless, people like Ben Shapiro rely on a demographic of people that have already bought into a whole laundry list of ideas. He's not convincing anybody with this video. Do you want to go into the comments and see if anybody was like, oh my God, I was convinced by this video. Like, I can't imagine how it is like in America trying to raise your child with all this nonsense going on. I feel sorry for the parents. 1993 kid here, and the Toys story is part of my childhood as much as I wanted to watch it. I'm done with Disney. I ain't giving them my money no more. It's fantastic watching Disney constantly crash and burn their projects since they went woke. Really? Disney has been crashing and burning all their projects since they went woke? It's really funny to me that they'll just say this and then 35 likes. No examples. What went woke and went broke? Red flags were going off when Buzz himself wasn't the center focus of the trailers for this movie. The cast of side characters was. I immediately knew this was where this was going. Oh boy. How dare they not focus entirely on the straight white male character? Yeah, it's about what I expected. See, nobody in the comments is like, oh my God, I never considered these things. I'm so surprised. It's all people who've already either been falling down the rabbit hole enough to just completely agree with this shit already, or people who already agreed with it to begin with coming in, and they're just having the same ideas they already agree with, regurgitated into their mouths like baby birds. Ben Shapiro is vomiting into your mouth, conservatives. He is vomiting his rhetoric into your mouths, and you are slurping it up like baby birds.
Right? They'll take an argument like, you're a climate change denier if you say the climate is not changing because of human activity. And then they will expand that out to include everyone who agrees that human activity is at least partially responsible for climate change. We just disagree with your solutions. This is what they do all the time. They do it on January 6th too, right?
So a climate change denier, generally, as I think most people would agree, is somebody who disagrees with what the scientific consensus is on the issues of climate and of climate change and how to deal with it. If scientists are saying we do this, this, and this to deal with climate change, and conservatives are saying, no, we don't need to do those things, we should just do this and this, that is not going to be a solution. And that is, I would argue, and I think most people would agree, I think, like, colloquially speaking, even if it's not like super technically by the, very close definition, I think a pretty good, falls under the umbrella of climate change denier. When you're arguing against science, yeah, you're on this issue, you're a climate change denier. Functionally, that's where you're at.
could have condemned January 6th. He could have thought that Donald Trump was saying things that were not true between November 4th and January 6th, all of that. But you voted for Trump, didn't you? And that means that you are a January 6th insurrectionist. They always take the...
Who is saying that anybody who voted for Trump is a January 6th insurrectionist? What?
All of that. But you voted for Trump, didn't you? And that means that you are a January 6th insurrectionist.
So another big part, another very popular aspect of conservative demagoguery is lying about the left's positions. So apparently the left thinks that if you voted for Trump, then that makes you inherently a January 6th insurrectionist. I will say, by the way, I love the fact that the right has had to walk back so much. Not like inherently in that statement, Ben Shapiro is admitting that January 6th and the insurrection was bad and that is something the right did and that is something that was done under Trump by Trump supporters with, to some degree, Trump's approval and Trump's goading. However, now he's saying, but not all of us are January 6th insurrectionists, but, you know, maybe a lot of us did support it, which is what he's referencing here, by the way. Any media outlets that did say anything that you could possibly try to frame as everyone who voted for Trump as an insurrectionist is probably something like a media outlet saying the number of Trump supporters and Trump voters who think the election was stolen and support the January 6th election is startling. Like shit like that. That's probably what Ben Shapiro is referencing here, because he is notorious for lying about things that happened, and when you look at what happened, he just lied about what happened, and you can just go check and see.
They always take the outline case, and then they make this the rubric under which they absorb pretty much everybody.
I see.
Merely pointing out technical limitations on lithium-ion batteries could be disinformation, according to the Wall Street Journal. Asked whether climate disinformation posed a threat to public health, McCarthy replied, absolutely, while adding hilariously, President Biden doesn't focus on, and neither do I, on bashing fossil fuel companies. The Axios interviewer smiled and nodded along.
By the way, what they're doing here is exactly the same thing they did with COVID for so long. Do you remember all the way back when COVID first started and places were first starting to take it seriously, and the narrative was the same as like what Elon Musk said back in 2020. There won't be any new cases in America by April 2020. COVID's not a big deal. Get back to work back in like May 2020. Don't take it seriously. And then you had like Fauci, and you had like the CDC, and you had the how am I forgetting the name right now? The World Health Organization, like all saying, oh yeah, COVID's on the watch list. We need to take COVID seriously. You should probably wash your hands, possibly quarantine if you're coming from these countries. And then as it got like a little further along, we had like an overwhelming consensus that you should probably do this and this. And then now this was the funniest one too, because this is demonstrative of how dishonest conservatives are. In the beginning, when COVID started to like really become a problem, like hospitals were starting to fill up and respirators were starting to run out and masks were starting to run out because people were buying them up along with the toilet paper and people were freaking out. The CDC said, if you're just a normal citizen and you're just out there, and Fauci said this as well, if you're just a normal civilian, just some random citizen, do not go out and buy a bunch of fucking masks because there's a shortage of them and medical personnel need them. Quarantine, social distance, do what you can. And there also at the time wasn't even necessarily enough evidence to suggest that masks would be effective at stopping COVID from like getting into your body. And so then a couple months later, evidence did come out that it was. Not only that, but then there was enough masks available for medical personnel, enough so that there was enough masks on the shelves for people to buy. And Fauci came forward, and so did the CDC, and said, you should wear masks. They started implementing mask mandates, and then people like Ben Shapiro, these fucking conservative grifters, came along and said, well, remember when Fauci and the CDC and WHO didn't advise that people should buy masks and said there wasn't evidence that masks would stop COVID? And it's like, holy shit. He wanted to stop panic buying, and there at the time wasn't evidence that masks would stop COVID definitively the way that we know they do now. That's how science works. COVID, we only even knew of COVID's existence for like 2 weeks. Learning whether or not like a mask will be effective at stopping a pathogen from passing through its fibers is like, that's got to be something you have to test more than like for longer than a couple weeks, you know, at least a few months.
long. That, of course, is absurd. Joe Biden literally sent a letter claiming that fossil fuel companies were responsible for oil shortages right now, which is the dumbest thing in the world. So, all of this attempt.
So my understanding is that isn't gas literally like 7 pounds a gallon or some shit, like it was like 690 or 680 pounds a gallon in the UK, or liter or whatever per they do there. Like, gas is off the fucking hook in the UK as well. This is not like a Biden thing. My understanding is that a large part of it is Russia, right? Isn't a lot of like the gas shortage coming from Russia and the shit going on with them? Like, I'm not 100% aware of all the factors playing into why oil is why gas is so expensive right now. Large part of it has to be the fact that everything is overinflated right now. Inflation is off the fucking chain at the moment. Food's expensive. Everything's expensive right now. Xander Hall gas companies started throttling their production during COVID, but then didn't start it up again. So Biden was right. That doesn't surprise me. It's not like, listen, I know we don't really like Biden that much, but it doesn't really seem like a very Biden thing to do, to just lie and say gas companies are causing this to it just doesn't really seem like a Biden thing to do. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. Actually, matter of fact, we can look into this right now and see if Ben Shapiro is just lying his ass off. Gas companies throttle gas shortage USA Biden. This is from WCNC Charlotte. Verify. No, the Biden administration is not to blame for the gas shortage. A lot of claims on social media say the president is the reason behind the gas shortage. If you've had a hard time finding gas in the Charlotte area, there's good news. Tankers are delivering fuel to stations. This is from like a month ago. Tankers are delivering fuel to stations that are out of gas, and government officials are hoping things are back to normal by the weekend, but the shortage was at its peak. WCNC Charlotte saw a lot of headlines and social media posts blaming President Biden and his administration for the recent gas shortage. The question, is President Biden responsible for the gas shortage? The sources: Director of the External Communications for AAA Jeanette Castellano-McGee, Winthrop Political Science Professor Dr. Scott Huffman. Okay, these are some pretty smart sounding people. The answer: no, Biden is not, but they should be part of the solution. They are not responsible for the gas shortage, but they should be part of the solution. Well, he found. Dr. Huffman said that a lot of the blaming we're seeing happening online is due to the polarized world we live in right now. Everything is politicized today to the point where if someone stubs their toe, it's the fault of the other political party, Dr. Huffman said. Colonial is a private company. To say a president who has been in office for over 100 days is at fault for this ransomware attack doesn't make a lot of sense. There was a ransomware attack I know that caused a lot of issues, but I don't know if this is connected, though. We must look deeper. This one's from CNN. Gas prices are in the danger zone. Biden can't do much about it. What? Okay, so do you guys remember back when COVID first started and there was oil gas like dropped to nothing. Like everyone was just filling up their jerry cans with gas and everything. It's because like no one was buying any fucking gas. Everyone was staying home. And it was just sitting there, spoiling, going to waste, just not getting sold. And so these oil companies throttled back their production. And now that like the world's kind of getting the gears turning again, it's not really caught up again, which makes sense. I like, if you really think about it for long enough, I don't think someone like Ben Shapiro or really anybody here could explain how Biden could possibly be responsible for the oil shortages. Like, unless you can point to some policy where Biden signed a bill that said, we are only allowed to import this much oil per year, and we've reached that capacity, and now we don't have enough oil because Biden signed an oil limit or something. Like, if you can point to a policy like that Biden signed, then Biden's at fault. But I'm not seeing one yet. They're not pointing at any policies. What did Biden do to make the gas prices and inflation go up?
To cut down on dissent is pretty commonplace on the left, unfortunately, right now. All the way up to and including a researcher paid by the Department of Homeland Security calling Tucker Carlson a stochastic terrorist.
True. Fucking true. Ben Shapiro does not know what a stochastic terrorist is. He does not know what that word means. He heard the words terrorist, and his audience heard the word terrorist, so he's just going to just roll with that.
The idea, again, being that Tucker Carlson disagrees with you. Therefore, he is essentially like somebody who bombs buildings. And so he must.
There you go. There you go. He doesn't know what the word stochastic means. Stochastic terrorist must mean you're essentially the same as someone who bombs buildings. So for those of you guys that don't know, because I guess it's been a long time since the discussion about stochastic terrorism has happened on like YouTube and in BreadTube spaces, the idea is that modern day radicalism and especially terrorism, specifically referring to the far right here in America, typically isn't happening from like people that are in organized groups that are like getting together, getting their guns together. Like we did do that one story yesterday where the police caught something very similar to that, but like the New York state shooter, the Christchurch shooter, the El Paso shooter, like these guys were not part of large neo-Nazi orgs or anything like that. They were radicalized individually on their own by consuming propaganda and getting so well, and just welling up in them so much that they eventually got a gun, went to a grocery store that they thought would have a lot of black people at it, and then shot it up, or went to a mosque and killed 50 innocent people, or went to a grocery store in El Paso and killed like 15 to 12, I think it was, innocent people. And then there was the mosque arsonist in San Diego. Like, this shit is not part of a direct, like, there's no leader of a cult telling them to do this stuff. What's happening is there is an entire catalog of far right to even moderate right to sometimes even more centrist, and without them even realizing it, content creators that are producing content that is pushing an audience of people more to the right, more towards these more radical ideas. And while none of these content creators themselves are likely telling their audience to engage in any level of violence or direct action, some of them are. People like John Doyle and Nick Fuentes certainly are. And if you start watching someone like Ben Shapiro, it's only a matter of time, especially if you're a Zoomer, before you end up watching someone like John Doyle or Nick Fuentes, who, well, there was, like I said yesterday on stream, John Doyle was literally at a gay pride parade the other day with a group of neo-Nazis screaming to the police to kill all the gay people and shoot them in the heads because they're groomers, and that's the cops' jobs. So yeah, like eventually you do get to the point where the content creators start directly calling for violence. And of course, John Doyle is still on YouTube. He will not be banned. YouTube does not give a shit. They never have. They never will. However, oh, you guys didn't know about that. You guys didn't know about the John Doyle clip? Yeah, the clip of him a few days ago where he's at a pride parade and he's like standing with all of his Nazi buddies and he's telling the police, go shoot those groomers in the head. It's your job, pointing over at the pride parade. Yeah, because he was at the counter protest to the he was at a protest protesting the pride parade. You got to be a real piece of shit to be protesting a pride parade. Anyway, we don't need to get too stun-locked on all of this. Tucker Carlson, literally I actually don't know what days and how often Tucker Carlson is on TV. I'm going to guess he's on basically every night, maybe not on Sundays. Basically every night, Tucker Carlson goes on air, and if anything involving race, or if any like crime gets committed by a brown person or a gay person, you better believe he's going to be telling his audience all about it, all about how trans women are degenerate, mentally ill men that are sneaking into women's spaces to harm them. But meanwhile, we need to ban abortion, and women need to be forced to raise the children of their rapists. And also, rape isn't real. God intended for it to happen. Like, they'll say that kind of shit behind closed doors. Don't you even think they won't for a fucking second, all right? They love saying that. Back in the day, they said it mask off on stage and on TV because they could. Nowadays, they don't say it out loud because they know it'll happen. But yeah. Regardless, though, what they do is they push their narrative and they radicalize their audience, and their audience, almost in a way radicalizes themselves to a certain point. And somebody like Tucker Carlson, who is absolutely a white nationalist who believes in the Great Replacement, or claims he does, and or pretends he does, or I should say acts like he does, and he absolutely probably wants there to be a more white America. And I don't think that he shed a single tear over the recent New York State shooting whatsoever. He and his rhetoric are absolutely, in large part, responsible for the propagation of the conspiracy that not only the Christchurch shooter, but the New York State shooter a few weeks ago also named their manifestos after and based their attacks on. So, yeah. Stochastic terrorism. It's when a figure who spreads a certain type of idea basically functionally radicalizes a percentage of people that see their content or their messaging, and that group of people then engage in direct, like, physical terrorism. And that is absolutely what people like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson do. But Ben Shapiro is too stupid to know what the word stochastic means.
Must be stopped. If you call somebody
He failed math.
a stochastic terrorist, the obvious implication is they must be restricted and censored. Here is a DHS researcher talking about this.
Have you been paid taxpayer dollars by DHS to study Tucker Carlson as a stochastic terrorist?
No.
Okay. Has that been a feature of your research? Have you researched Tucker Carlson?
I mean, informally, for my own edification, I have.
Sufficient to the point that you were willing to say on Twitter that he's a stochastic terrorist for the Buffalo massacre, right?
I'm willing to.
He absolutely is, and this guy's an absolute scumbag. By the way, this is like the most dishonest, scummy line of questioning I've ever heard in my life.
Say it on congressional record, yes.
He's a stochastic terrorist, right? The goal of the left is to characterize everybody they disagree with as responsible for actual violence or human pain and suffering, and therefore they must be stopped.
Ben Shapiro has literally defended Alex Jones for his spreading of the conspiracy that the Sandy Hook shooting was a false flag, and the fact that Alex Jones fans then, in response to that, sent death threats and mass harassment to the family members and surviving victims of the shooting for years afterwards. Those families and surviving victims then sued Alex Jones, won all the case. Alex Jones is losing case after case after case. He's not even bothering to fight them because he's so lost in all these cases. He's losing tens of millions in every one of these cases. And yet people like Ben Shapiro will absolutely defend him and say, oh no, he can't control his audience. He could have had no ability to prevent that. He could have not known in any way that could have happened. No responsibility whatsoever. Because people like Ben Shapiro and demagogue content creators like this know what they're doing. They know what their ideology leads to, and they know what content creators their viewers are also watching. Listen, hey, YouTube added a feature that lets you see what other YouTubers your audience is often watching. I can see what other YouTubers you guys typically watch. Ben Shapiro knows that a large amount of his audience are watching people like John Doyle and Nick Fuentes clip channels and whatnot. He knows that a large part of his audience are actual Nazis. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if there's a bunch of little future mass shooters watching his content. He's getting his bag, and that's all that matters to him.
Must be silenced. Which is, of course, why you saw Twitter yesterday apparently mulling the possibility of banning Libs of TikTok. Now, Libs of TikTok keeps coming up because all Libs of TikTok does, and I know the woman behind Libs of TikTok very nice.
It spread shit tons of misinformation. It's actually wild. Do you remember when Libs of TikTok legitimately spread the fake story about the litter boxes in school classrooms in Florida for the furry identifying students? Just a completely made up story. It got completely falsified and proven wrong, and Libs of TikTok just never went back on it because Libs of TikTok is an extremely influential right-wing propaganda account, an account so influential it's literally influencing policy that is getting passed in our country. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't give a shit about the Libs of TikTok getting doxxed thing, and I'm fully in favor of Libs of TikTok getting banned from Twitter. They've gone out of their way to spread blatant misinformation and lies. They're having an effect on literal policy that's getting passed in our country. There are literal right-wing politicians attributing Libs of TikTok as the inspiration for them passing anti-LGBT policies in this country on a local level. I'm sorry, Libs of TikTok is a political figure now, and yeah, they get the boot.
This lady, all Libs of TikTok does is take crazy people on TikTok and put them on Twitter. That's all.
That's all Libs of TikTok does. Take crazy libs from TikTok and put them on Twitter. That's all Libs of TikTok does. No doxing, no calling for arrests, nothing like that. Never done anything like that. Absolutely. Never calling for people to get fired or mass harassed. Never children either. Oh, Libs of TikTok has never found a random 12-year-old and encouraged their audience to harass that 12-year-old. Libs of TikTok has never spread blatant misinformation and refused to even try to correct it because Libs of TikTok doesn't care and is a propaganda account that's pushing a right-wing narrative and doesn't give a shit about the truth. Very much like every other right-wing demagogue on this website.
People voluntarily post their videos on TikTok in which they demonstrate signs that they are crazy. And they do it for the clicks. They do it because they want attention. And then Libs of TikTok makes them more, spotlights them and gives them more attention. And they say, well, not that kind of attention. That's not the kind of attention I wanted. I wanted you to celebrate my transition into a genderqueer unicorn.
Oh, okay. So Ben Shapiro is in favor of the harassment stuff. Well, so to be clear, Ben Shapiro likes it when trans people kill themselves. So he is in favor of, like, he knows that the data overwhelmingly demonstrates that, like, societal affirmation and acceptance from family and friends and society broadly significantly decreases the likelihood of depression, suicidal ideation, even attempts or successful executions of suicide in trans people. He knows these are all true things. Whenever a left-wing person goes to him at an event and corners him and says, hey, how do you feel about all of the academic consensus saying everything I just said? He'll say, these academic institutions have been infiltrated by the left. That's basically his go-to. And then he'll ask what a woman is, but because he doesn't know, and he's never seen one. He has yet to see a vagina. Does he have any kids? He doesn't have any kids. My mom said his wife does. That was really good. That was a good one, Mom. Mom burn.
Why aren't you just celebrating? Libs of TikTok, it's a hate site. Well, all Libs of TikTok does, all she does is just post the stuff and point out what people are saying. So this means that many Twitter employees were now considering the possibility of trying to ban the account. According to the New York Post, the woman behind the controversial Libs of TikTok Twitter account says she has obtained internal Slack messages from Twitter employees indicating the social media company is thinking about banning her. The Libs of TikTok creator, identified by the Washington Post as Chaya Raichik of Brooklyn, New York, published a Substack post on Monday which included screenshots of what she claims are internal chats among Twitter employees. The Slack messages, which appear to have been exchanged on Monday, purportedly show one Twitter employee expressing frustration with management for not imposing an outright ban on Libs of TikTok. The account has 1.2 million followers. That is largely because Taylor Lorenz, the worst journalist in America, tracked down the person behind Libs of TikTok and decided to dox her by...
Taylor Lorenz, the worst journalist in America. God damn. Ben Shapiro. Dude, conservatives hate journalism and they hate free speech. They virtue signal about how much they love it, but there was a reason why they loved Trump and they loved his expanding of libel laws so much, because they love the fact that journalists are, under at least Republican rule, having their ability to keep the government, and especially a red government, in check, taken away. You have to understand, there are two very important apparati in our country that allow our very dysfunctional democracy to dysfunction. And that is, you got the government and you got the media. The media, journalism, especially like the more investigative journalists, these are the people that keep the government in check. If the government's doing like weird, fucked up shit, that kind of stuff gets leaked or found out or talked about or published. And the people, the voter base, the electorate, gets to know about that. And we find out about it. And we vote and change our ballots based on that. In that way, the media and like CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News to an extent, these media corporations allow us to keep these politicians held by the balls. We always have a magnifying glass on them and we always know what they're doing, and they fucking hate it, especially Republican politicians and especially, honestly, a lot of these right-wing demagogues. Because at this point, they themselves have become almost like politicians in their own right. They're so influential and have such a massive negative impact on the world that now they're being discussed as if they're politicians on their own.
Publishing a link to her address and all of this. The left has been pushing the idea that Libs of TikTok is quote unquote going to get somebody killed because Libs of TikTok is committing the grave sin of taking public information and making it more public. The same employee added, we successfully deplatformed Trump. I don't think
Libs of TikTok will literally just take random trans people that she finds on TikTok, call them pedophiles and groomers, and then post their information online. And then Ben Shapiro will say, absolutely no chance of that person getting hurt. Absolutely no chance of that person getting hurt.
Platforming of Libs of TikTok is going to cause a mass exodus, but I guess it may not be in our fiduciary interest to enact a ban on a high-profile account right now. The employee was reacting to a Twitter post on Sunday by Ari Drennan, who works for Media Matters. There it is. Worst organization in America. Drennan said, Chaya Raichik of Libs of TikTok is going to get somebody killed.
Damn, how many worst blanks in America does Ben Shapiro have in this video?
She attached screenshots showing posts by Libs of TikTok about a public library in the San Francisco Bay Area that was hosting a drag queen story event for children.
Cool.
The other employee who advocated for the ban replied, trans people are being targeted for genocidal violence during Pride Month. By the way, the only people that I can see who have actually been targeted en masse over the course of the last 6 weeks are pro-life clinics.
The only places that have been targeted en masse in the last few weeks are pro-life clinics. What? All right, here, we're going to show the John Doyle clip. Just because this is like a popular content creator who absolutely shares an audience with Ben Shapiro. Here's one video. This one's 1 minute and 37 seconds. This one is not the video I'm referring to, but I'm going to show that one in a moment. But this is him at that same Pride event with his Nazi buddies, and let's go ahead and see what he was up to.
I only have one question. Why do you want to put an axe wound in between your son's legs?
That's the point. That's the point.
Y'all need to go.
Let us in and get the ticket.
You're not making America great.
Yes, we are. What do you mean? You're making America worse. You're bringing your children
You need to go.
to this event.
You need to go now.
You're literally someone better. We'll pray for you, sweetie. Please do. We'll pray for you.
You must repent.
Bless you, man. Please.
Dude, I'm sorry, but like, this guy is just peak John Doyle fan, you know? I feel like this guy's got the face and bone structure of a John Doyle fan. I feel like he's the quintessential one. If I had to put a face on a John Doyle fan, this would be the face. Right there. That's him. That's the John Doyle fan.
I'm in a cult. Says the man dressed in a dress.
I wonder if the mama bear instinct is going to come out in 3 years when the mainstream Democrat Party platform is they want to rape your kids. And they're all going to think it's one big, smug little joke, these people, by the way. Understand.
By the way, the left are the ones who are triggered. The left are the ones who are crazy and freaking out online and being insane. The left are the ones that are triggered. Just remember that, guys. The left. The left, okay? Not the right, not these guys. They're not triggered at all. See, they're walking around the street at a pride parade with a megaphone screaming, "You're all pedophiles and rapists because you're gay," at a bunch of like families walking into a building like on the street. Yeah, these guys are definitely not triggered.
That there is a bigger difference between 10 years ago and now.
Look at this fucking okay, I'm getting rid of my camera so you can see this guy. Look at this fucking dude. Look at this John Doyle fan. Oh my god, dude. Holy shit. Oh my god. I'm not making fun of this guy. He has one arm, and that's sad. Look at the dude behind him. Oh my god. This kid looks like the kid in the meme. In the meme where it's like the kid on the computer, like with the scrawny kid, and then there's the buff guy. He looks like the scrawny kid with glasses in the meme. That looks like Caleb Maupin in the back. Of course, this guy just looks like every douchebag you knew in high school, I guess. This guy's nothing special. I've seen a million dudes who look like this guy. And this guy's like, actually, I don't know. I don't have like an archetype for this guy. But everybody else here, I feel like, is a pretty big archetype. We're doing chud phrenology. Let's go.
Now than there would be between now and in 5 years when they're.
Oh, hey, let's not get too let's not get too stun locked. I meant to show you guys a specific video. Yep, here it is. A Christian fascist leader, John Doyle, encourages police to, quote, "go in there and put bullets in all their heads. That's what the badge is for." So let's go ahead and watch the clip. It's gonna be hard to hear, but hopefully you can parse it out.
Holy Mary, Mother of God. I hate how bureaucratized everything is now. We have to file reports. The sheriffs in Texas today have to go out there and bullets in all their heads. That's what the bad. Like, I'm not trying to.
So he said they should put bullets in their heads. They would be rewarded for it. That's what the badge is for. There you go. So absolutely no danger, no attacks whatsoever on LGBT people. The most in danger, according to Ben Shapiro, are the pro-life clinics, apparently. Those are the ones that are under attack.
Life clinics have been firebombed repeatedly over the course of the last month and a half. The media refused to even cover that. But apparently Libs of TikTok posts a tweet, and this is a deep and abiding threat to trans people all over the United States. Later in the thread, the Twitter employee who expressed caution about banning Libs of TikTok apologized for appearing to downplay the perceived threat against transgender people. "I apologize. I was not speaking from my own perspective, but applying a commentary on how leadership has behaved recently," the employee wrote. "I could have phrased that better and will be more conscious in future messages." So there was an attempt to go after Libs of TikTok again. And then Chaya Raichik pointed out that she'd been getting a bunch of death threats, which she has.
What do pro-life clinics do? Off the top of my head, it sounds like it's probably like where if you're like a parent of like a kid, and your kid gets like raped or your kid gets pregnant and wants to get an abortion, you send your kid to that pro-life clinic instead. And the pro-life clinic would basically like obviously not allow you to get an abortion, and would put you through like prenatal care and everything, and would basically be like, would probably feed you a lot of anti-abortion propaganda, like, you don't want to do this, you can't do this, do not get an abortion, you're killing a life. I know that's been a big issue with some of those pro-life clinics. It's basically like an alternate clinic run by pro-lifers to talk women out of getting abortions and to pressure them into keeping the baby, as opposed to what most Planned Parenthood clinics do and whatnot, which is just offer a service. That's all they do. They offer us, in some cases. They don't always offer it. They offer a service among many, many, many other services. Abortion is one of many services they offer. And honestly, something that surprised me a lot, a service they don't really offer that often. Like abortions are actually a very tiny slice of what they do. Regardless, though, like, when my understanding, and I've talked to a few women who've gotten abortions before, through my like time on YouTube and stuff, just Twitter conversations and stuff, and the consistent like testimony I've always heard, and I granted this isn't data, this isn't large scale testimony even, or large scale sentiment analysis. This is just generally what I've heard in a few cases. It generally seems like it's just kind of like, you go in, and if it's what you want, then you get it. They don't pressure you into it. They don't really ask you if you want it. It's not like advertised to you or like pushed on you. It's just there, apparently. That's my understanding. Xander Hall pro-life clinics pretend to be abortion clinics and lie to people about the risk and pressure them into keeping the pregnancy. Also, the one clinic head would stand on the other side of a shared fence screaming at them. Jesus. The library that Libs of TikTok named got raided by Proud Boys. Very direct stochastic cause and effect. Oh, so like Libs of TikTok named a place and then the Proud Boys raided it. Yeah, of course. That's stochastic terrorism right there. Can't really tie it back to Libs of TikTok directly. You could never really punish Libs of TikTok for it, but Libs of TikTok knew what would happen if you claimed that some grooming shit was going down there and published something like that, of course. It's worse than that, Xander Hall. Profile clinics have been known to deceive women into waiting until it's too late to have an abortion, even when they want one. That's so scummy. Yeah, just say, oh yeah, we'll get you. Yeah, you're going to get it. Yeah, you're going to get it. And just wait out the clock. And then by the time they figured out it's a ruse, then it's too late to even legally get one anywhere. That's so fucked. Yeah, those places, I would never say those places should be firebombed. Never in my life. That's horrible. Let's continue.
TikTok said, I've now received about a dozen threats after radical leftists accused me of being a domestic terrorist extremist. Twitter has not removed any of the accounts who sent the threat. Elon Musk, who's still in the process of buying Twitter, replied, why, and tagged Twitter.
Are you sure about
Just
that, Ben?
A little bit later, those accounts were removed or blocked. So again, and what did this prompt? This is the best part. What did this prompt? It prompted anger, spasms of apoplexy from the worst journalist in America, Taylor Lorenz, who appeared recently on MSNBC to complain about how she was being targeted, about how her life was so difficult because she targets others, and now people are targeting her. And she cried about it, literally cried about it on national TV. And now she says,
she literally just did her job and reported on would you personally get an abortion if Lonnie was found out to be pregnant? No, both me and Lonnie have agreed that we'd terminate the pregnancy. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's been long agreed upon. Absolutely. We ain't raising no babies. That's not happening. I'm not going to be a dad. Lonnie doesn't want to be a mom. We don't want to be parents. It's just not happening, okay? Like, we got that one out of the way a long time ago. The kids aren't happening thing. That was like a like pretty early in the relationship, like getting past there. Like, if I'm going to have children, if I'm going to have children, it will be when I am completely beyond financially stable. If I'm ever going to have children. And two, I might just adopt, because there are already so many kids out there that are being like molested and abused in foster families out there. And I feel like, how fucking poggers would it be to be like a I don't know, some like Zoomer, I guess by the time what will be the next young generation by then? I don't know, some Zoomer, I don't know, whatever the next generation is, little kid, and you like watching Twitch and YouTube because that's basically the main form of entertainment now. You find out you're getting adopted. You meet your new dad. He's a fucking live streamer, and he's not abusive, and he's not gonna molest you. On top of that, now that right there, that sounds like a winning fucking that is some orphan's winning day. All right, that's some orphan's winning day. Adopt a gay kid. Listen, I've met many kids who were adopted. Well, I say kids. I met many people who were adopted, and when I was a kid, some kids who were adopted. All of them gay. So
that it's really bad that Elon Musk is noticing that Libs of TikTok is being targeted for violence by people. So Taylor Lorenz tweeted, of course. And then she linked to another article attacking Libs of TikTok and wrote, LGBTQ activists have called out Libs of TikTok's escalating attacks on the community in recent weeks. And then Lorenz subsequently shared a Twitter thread alleging that an original threat, which was a pipe bomb threat, was
I can see a little bit of Ben Shapiro's right nipple through his shirt, and I can't stop looking at it because he's kind of growing some man titties a little bit. I don't like the body shame, but either he's like getting into shape or he's growing man titties. I can't tell. But I can see his nipple through his shirt.
Sarcasm and a joke. And then tweeted all the conservatives speaking.
Cursed. So fucking cursed. Ben Shapiro's right nipple. It's the estrogen.
With Musk on Twitter are going to make Twitter a dangerous place. So glad that the Washington Post picked up Taylor Lorenz, the worst journalist in America. Gets very angry when anyone else complains about death threats. But she herself, she's the real victim. The battle for the culture is heating up. We here at the Daily Wire are making some big moves. So be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, because you're not going to want to miss a single moment.
I really do need to record a little subscribe and ring the bell icon little outro thing and play it at the end of every segment on stream instead of just reciting it myself. I feel like that would be pretty cool to do. Jesus Christ, though. As Ben Shapiro said, though, do all that with me. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more from me because you love my content and you want to know whenever I upload something new or go live, and, you know, YouTube doesn't typically tell you when I do that on its own. So if you want YouTube to actually do that, then please consider subscribing and ring the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube does do all things previously listed. And of course, if you just want to support my channel for completely free, it only takes half a second. You have no idea how much it really does help me and how much it really does support my channel. You can just like the stream, hit the like button. It is really, really helpful. It takes half a second. It's super easy. If you're watching on Twitch or on the website, all you have to do is either go in my description if you're on Twitch and click on my YouTube link, and you can see the stream on YouTube. Or if you're watching on my website, it's even more easy. You can just hover over the stream, click on the title when it pops up, and that'll open up the stream on YouTube, and you can just click the like button. It really does help me a lot. You can even do it on mobile. You can do it on even like a TV. Like if you have a smart TV, you can use your remote and like click down on the little arrow thing, and there'll be a little thing where you can select the like button and press. If you're logged in, you can press that and it'll like the stream. All those ways you can like the stream. I really do appreciate it if you do. It helps a lot more than you realize. And of course, if you want a more direct way to support me, you can do so by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub to me over on my website, xanderhall.com/live. It is the best place to chat, the best place to be a part of my community. If you're watching my stream and you are engaging with it in any way, you want to be in the website chat. I don't really read YouTube or Twitch chat, though it does exist, and I sometimes glance at it. And, you know, like the YouTube and Twitch chat aren't really on the screen, aren't really part of the conversation, but website chat is really where it's at. We got custom emotes. It's completely on its own, separate from the two websites. You get to make your own account with your own name. It will probably not be taken. So if you want to like make your own, get your own username and not have to like mess with it to have it not be taken, it's probably not taken yet. So yeah, come make a website. Get your username while it's still unused and hop on in here. And of course, if you want to see more from me here on this lovely place we call the internet, you can follow my social medias, all linked down below, including my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, fan Discord. And you can also support me on YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon. And that is all. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.